Aside from housing, there's no other industry that relies on so many other industries. To build a truck, you need metals like steel. You need paints, glass, lights, copper for the wiring, rubber for the tires, fabric and leathers for the interior, and many forms of plastic. That means that every car produced is creating and sustaining entire material industries. Auto sales are also an indicator of how much risk citizens are willing to make. A new automobile purchase ranges between $20,000 and $30,000. That's a huge chunk of money to put down on one item. And if you're unemployed, or you feel your job is at risk, you're less likely to purchase a new vehicle. You can see that by watching the health of the auto industry, you can get a good idea of how healthy the economy is. It's the reason car sales are one of the leading indicators of whether or not the United States is heading into a recession. For example, data from the Bureau of Transportation shows a decline in new car sales between 2000 and 2001. Now, the events of 9/11 played an effect on the markets, but there's no denying the slowing that was already beginning to appear in the data. Consequently, auto sales picked up again in the middle of the decade as the housing boom invigorated homeowners and lenders alike. However, what's bad for one industry can be good for another's. The United States is generally considered a service-based economy. One area that benefits is the services side of automobiles. If you're unable or unwilling to purchase a new vehicle, you're more likely to pay for preventative maintenance, or spend a few $1,000s to get your transmission or clutch replaced on your older vehicle. It's why so many garages and auto parts dealers have opened in the last 2 years. Another good example of market shifting to another opportunity is in housing. Home Depot has been doing incredibly well during the recession, and one of the reasons is because more people are renting. Now you might be asking, where's the correlation there? Well, before a home is adequate to rent, the landlord needs to go in and make repairs. They need to put in new carpets, they need to paint the walls, they need to replace outlets, replace light bulbs, and they need to do a thorough cleaning using cleaning chemicals. Such deep spring cleaning isn't always done every year when someone owns their own home. I know I let things sit, I know I let dust build up and light bulbs go out and I don't change them. I don't check behind the refrigerator and find that there's a cracked piece of tile that needs to be replaced. I mean, let's be honest, we're all a little bit guilty of letting things go a little unkept. I guess that's the luxury you get when you don't have a landlord checking up on you. And so when you're worried about a single industry affecting the whole economy, just realize that other industries will be affected in a positive way. One of the signs of a healthy industry can be its legacy, how long it's been around, and how important is the service or product to the consumer, and can that product be replaced easily? In history, we saw that the railroad industry was once thought to be the ultimate method of travel. And millions of dollars, years of planning, years of labor and building infrastructure to support it went into it. It was not foreseen that aviation was quickly on its tail and would soon overtake it, and that the highway would bring trucking, and the flexibility of transportation of goods would increase. Similarly, the internet eliminated the need for mail letters. And all these industries overtook and became much more productive and substantial to our wealth than their predecessors were. In fact, no industry or corporation dies without it being replaced by something better for the whole. The assumption that losing an industry or company is a net loss to the economy is hardly backed by the results of the last 200 years. The horse is a good example. The horse is no longer viewed as an effective means of transportation. The cost to continue using the horses exceeded the cost of using automobiles. Once you could expect a decent living breeding horses, but that career has safely moved into a niche category. It was not a loss to have all those breeders and trainers lose their jobs. It may have been to the individual. However, the individual now had the opportunity to work at Ford. In little time, his wage had been increased, and the cost of the vehicles were reduced to the point that anyone working on the factory floor could afford one, an unheard of proposition just years prior. And the same reality exists today. Had the auto industry not been bailed out, many of the factory workers would have gone out and opened their own garage, or went and worked for an existing one. Their wages would have been matched or increased due to the influx of more people bringing their vehicles in to get fixed. In fact, The money loaned out to the auto industry could have been loaned out in smaller amounts to those individuals leaving the companies and seeking to start their own mechanics shop. This would have led to people having more control of their futures, more potential innovators and entrepreneurs as well. Higher-up executives would have left and opted to work for smaller, more regional companies. Companies like Tesla and others that are electric-minded could have used the skills and connections that the executives from the larger companies had. This would have led to an even quicker transition to electric fleets on the road. The factories would be shut down and purchased by newer players with less legacy contracts and obligations. Just as it did after World War II, economists were worried that all the factories that were used to make military equipment would close down and all the workers would lose their jobs. The economists dared to suggest that the war should be continued or slowly eased out of over a long period of time. This does make us pause. The exact opposite happened. All that infrastructure was used to produce products for the consumers. An assembly line once used to make bearings for tanks was now making bearings for passenger vehicles. The reason the automobile industry was bailed out was because few people could contemplate better uses for the labor, resources, and assets the industry possessed. Had we understood that it's not up to government or those within the automobile industry to come up with creative solutions, then we likely would not have made the anti-innovative decision in the first place. The most innovative companies are Apple and Google, and all they do is make their prior products inadequate. It's a profitable practice, and any country willing to try it will likely see similar results. Hey everybody, it's Jacob Williams from WiLDacademy.com. If you'd like to comment on this episode, you can go to WiLDacademy.com. From there, you can go to articles, and you can select the article for this week. We have comments down below, and I would love to hear from you. From there, you can also link to my YouTube channel and my Google Plus page. I will see you later, and have a wonderful week.